next speaker, Dr. Muhammad Arafa, very well known in mashallah in his field, and he has been doing a lot of great work in the project management ecosystem across the region and globally. I believe he's gonna take us through a sneak peek into the coming edition of PMBOK Guide 2021 PMP Exam Changes. Dr. Muhammad is touched a lot of people, including myself, in many occasions, as he presented and spoke in multiple conferences. He's the Chief Specialist Program and Project Management (EPMO) at the moment, currently working in RTA for almost 14 plus years. Immaculate 29 years of experience working with contracts, consultants, developers, government agencies across the whole region, from Egypt to UAE to Qatar, mashallah alayk, and globally as well and beyond. Building and operating project and enterprise PMOs, developing policies, procedures, selection and customization of project management and PMIS tools. Mashallah, ocean of experience and knowledge. So I recommend you guys to connect with him on LinkedIn, and definitely a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge to share. Dr. Muhammad, over to you for معلش, I've given a brief introduction in an ocean of mashallah يعني عطاء, the giving. God bless you. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mazin, for the introduction. Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Yes,
it's very clear.
great. Um, uh, in addition to my work in project management, I am also the founder of Officna. Officna is a knowledge sharing forum where we share knowledge mainly in Microsoft Office, and it has some sections for project management and scientific research. For this forum, I invite those of you who are Arabic speakers to join us and visit the forum. We have around more than 190,000 Arabic members with more than 500,000 topic in Microsoft Office, sharing knowledge from simple tips until complete applications and complete projects shared for free for Microsoft Office. So if you are an Arabic speaker, please join us with officena.net, for which I went from Microsoft MVP, Microsoft Most Valuable Professional, 5 years in series. I'm also an author of an Arabic book, and I will tell you a little bit later on about this ROI study. Me and a team of my colleagues, the best ROI study from ROI Institute, which is a worldwide award given each 2 years for the best ROI study in the world. And then I will discuss with you a little bit later on about it. Those are my list of professional certifications. Out of them, I have 5 with PMI, and I'm also an authorized training instructor with PMI. This is the list of references that I used for this presentation. I will share the full links at the end with you, so you can download all the complete resources from which I built this presentation. This is how I plan to do the session. First of all, the exam changes, what changes in the 2021 changes the exam. Then a sneak peek into the coming PMBOK guide. And finally, we'll discuss a little bit about some tools that can be used effectively provided by PMI to help us manage projects and get some knowledge and insights. And finally, if there is questions and answers, we'll be happy to answer them. So my first step is I have a small poll just to set the scene and understand the classification of the attendees. So I will start sharing the first poll with you. Very quick poll, just to know your background, your interest in certification, and your agile certification knowledge. So I can set the tone of the coming part of the presentation to know if, for example, if all of you are certified, then there will be no need to discuss much about the exam changes. Yani I will go through it very quickly, and so on. So we have 20 seconds to go. So from the responses till now, almost all attendees are PMI certified. So this raises a question: should we continue with the part of introducing the exam changes just for knowledge, or we can skip it and focus more on the second part? We will discuss now after the completion of the poll. So most of you are from information technology. I will just end the poll now in order not to take much more time, and I will share the results with you on screen now. So most of the attendees, 36% are from information technology and 27 from healthcare. So none from telecom, none from banking, construction, 9%. Then for the certification, we have 9 PMP certified who has the credential, and 2 who are planning to have it. So this gives us 11 answers. So, and for the agile certifications, most of we have, so PMI ACP is has the most votes, 4, and then disciplined agile 2, and then the other Scrum Master and Skilled 1 each. So great, great. So we have an idea about how it's going here. So I just raised a question, not sure because in order not to get optimum use of time, should I still go through the PMP exam changes? Because the majority of you are already certified. Are you still interested to know what are the changes in the exam, or we can skip that part? Because the majority of you now are PMP already certified.
No, exam changes as well.
Okay, so we'll go through it quickly. Before we start, there are some major changes that are happening in both areas that I'm going to talk about the exam change itself and about the new coming PMBOK, the 7th edition. One of them is the Agile, introducing the Agile approaches, which are something that is mostly familiar with people who are working in IT and telecommunication and software development mainly. But for other industries and other areas, it might be as well as practiced or known. So the Agile introduction in the coming edition of the PMBOK and in the current exam is very well noted. So just to highlight some few points about the common changes and things, you know, or most of you know that for Agile, we care more about delivering value, about incremental delivery, about having a working product, about starting with a minimum viable product against comprehensive documentation, against following a plan, against processes and tools. So the individuals and interactions are come still. We need some tools and processes, but are preferred when compared to processes and tools. So there is more emphasis on having a working product, having good and effective interaction with all stakeholders, collaboration with customer, and responding to change and accepting change in order to deliver value. So those are the 4 values of the Agile Manifesto. And they have been a source of a lot of the changes that are coming now. So there are 3 keywords that we are going to discuss that I am going to highlight very much during my presentation: Agile and value and people. So we are building on Agile approaches to deliver more incremental and more value to the organization. People are not anymore required, the project team, the project managers, everyone working in a project. His aim is not only to deliver on time, on cost, on quality, but value became the ultimate target for any effort in any organization now. So earlier there was the triple constraint. You start with a project and you are successful if you complete on scope, on time, on quality, and cost. And then PMI extended the constraints to be anything that constrains you, not only the 3 or the triple or the iron triangle. So you can have constraints related to risks, constraints related to resources, and so on. And they call it the completing constraints. Then after that, maybe a few years back, there was clear highlighting about social responsibility, about the effect of the project on the economy, about effect of the project on the environment. So we have those 3 green triangles introduced also. And finally, benefit became very much highlighted. So benefit now is at the core of any effort you do for anything, even in your life, even in your organization, even in the chapter. When you do activities for the chapter, is it are you following only the plans to complete on time a certain number of activities, a certain number of categories of activities, or the ultimate benefit beyond those activities in matter? Everyone now is changing their strategy, even the transformation. When you do a transformation, digital transformation or any other transformation, what is the expected benefits that you are going to realize at the end? It's not about just transforming, but the benefit has to be in front of your eyes and in front of the eyes of anyone working in the project. So those three keywords we are going to see now and discuss many times when we discuss the exam changes and also when we discuss the changes in the PMBOK. So this cycle is from the benefit realization management practice guide. So you have your strategy, your objectives, your initiatives, which are projects and programs, and then you deliver outputs, which are the deliverables from any project, from any program, from any portfolio. Those are the clear deliverables. Previously, the focus was here on the deliverables, to produce the deliverables in the correct way, to choose the correct projects to build those deliverables, and to complete them the right way. But the choice now is also related to what value are we going to deliver. So when you choose the correct projects or choose the correct combination of projects, your eyes now or your focus must be on the left part of this chart, outcomes, benefit, and value. So there is a shift from outputs towards value, benefits, and outcomes. We start the first part of the presentation, and as I told you, the previous introduction is applicable to both parts, the exam changes and also the changes in the coming edition of the PMBOK guide. So these changes are now applicable. It started being applicable from Jan 2021. The first change is the number of questions. It was, instead of 200 questions, it became 180 questions. But still the same number of questions is scored. When you were supposed to answer 200 questions, only 175 of them were scored, and the 25 are not scored. It doesn't matter you answer correct or wrong, they were not scored. Why? Because there was 25 questions which are under test. So they are piloted using the people who are taking the exam. So those 25 questions now are reduced to 5 only. So your score is still from 175, but you will answer less questions, which give you more relaxation. The exam duration will be 230 minutes, and you will have 10 minutes break in it. So this is also more relaxing when you are allowed to have break without stopping your time. It's very effective, and you can have 2 breaks with each of them 10 minutes. And before you start the exam, there is a 5 to 10 minutes tutorial where you can get familiar with the exam, the screens, and you can skip it if you want. All the previous tests, most of you are certified. Your whole exam was 4 answers for each question, multiple answer questions, and there are fixed 4 answers for each question. Now you can have 3 answers, 2 answers. It's not anymore fixed to 4 answers. You can have 3, 2, 5. It's open now. Question and multiple answers, then you choose the correct one. The second type of exam is a question is the drag and drop question. So I can drag from the right side into the left side. So for example, here, identify stakeholders is an initiation process group. So I will drag from here and put it, drag it and leave it here. So this way my answer is correct. The second type or the third type of question is what they call the hotspot question. So you get a certain chart, and then you have a question about the chart. For example, which has the highest cost? Is it A, B, C, or D? There your answer will be D, and so on. So you can have a curve for error value, and you are asking which one of those is the schedule variance or the cost variance, and so on. So it will be a chart, and based on your understanding of the chart, you will answer or choose the right answer between multiple answers given to you. The fourth type is a hotspot question. It can be a table, not a chart, where it has some data, and then you will be asked in which situation, which risks has the highest impacts, which risks can be mitigated, which risks we can accept, and so on. So you will have a table with information and data in it, and then your answer will be, for example, is it 1 or 2 or 3, which has the highest risks or has the which one you can accept, and so on. So there is a variety of form of questions, which is I see it's very good, because having the same form of questions for this long duration was not optimum. Now I think it's much better. The other major change in the exam that it's not covering anymore the traditional or predictive or waterfall approach, with most of the PMBOK editions previously is addressing the traditional approach, or what they call the waterfall or the predictive approach, with some highlights to the agile techniques, which were introduced starting fifth edition and increased a little bit in sixth edition, where you have an agile practice guide issued with the PMBOK itself. So, but the PMBOK itself was still written in mostly to more the majority of it to suit the predictive approach. Now the exam will handle all approaches, and from experience of people who went to the new exam, maybe you can get more than 50% of your questions addressing the agile approach. So the agile approach is very highlighted in the coming exam. So if you have completed your preparation for the exam earlier, you need to put more emphasis on understanding the general concepts of agility. So the exam domains also have been changed. When the exam changes, it's not related usually to the change in the PMBOK, but it is related to a change in the exam content outline. The exam content outline is updated each few years based on a role delineation study, where the BMI survey is the current practices, what is happening, what is changing in the market, and then they update the exam content outline based on the role delineation study. So now the exam content outlines addresses three main domains: people, processes, and business environment. Previously, it was the blueprint of the exam was based on the process group. Till before January 2021, this was the old blueprint. So you have 24% on planning, 30% in executing, and so on. Now the blueprint is totally different. It's about three main domains: people, processes, and business environment. And you see the processes are only 50%. So you have 40% of the exam questions talking about people, about how to build your team, about how to interact with your stakeholders, how to collaborate with them. So 42% of the exam will be addressing people, which is a major change also. So the exam content outline is published on PMI site, and I will send you also the link to download it. It has English and Arabic versions and many other languages. In it, in the exam content outline, you'll find the three domains we just discussed: people, processes, and the environment. And under each domain, you have specific tasks, which are the responsibilities of the project manager. So to be able to answer the exam correctly, or to be ready for the exam, you have to read carefully and study what are the tasks under each domain, because based on those, the exam is reformatted. And then for each task, there is some enablers, work associated with that task. So you have three levels: domain, number one, and under each domain, you have tasks. So for example, for the people domain, you have 14 tasks. Each of the tasks has 3 or 4 or 5 enablers, depends about the task, which will help you to do the work associated with this task. So those are the tasks of the people domain: manage conflict, lead a team, empower your stakeholders, empower the team, build your team, collaborate with your stakeholders. So there is a change in the wording now. Before it was manage stakeholder, engage stakeholder. Now it's changing into more agile concept: collaborate with your stakeholders. Mentor relevant stakeholders, which was never addressed before. You are now, one of your tasks is to mentor relevant stakeholders. Most of this was already included in the previous editions, but it was not focused under a common domain like this. And it didn't have this much attention or this much weight in the exam question. So those kind of tasks, for example, here, number 7, remove impediment. It can be applicable to any type of project, but it is a common task for one of the roles of the agility, which is in other methodologies called the Scrum Master. So even the agile terms are introduced here as a general task. The second is the processes. The second domain is the processes, where you have here the common previous knowledge area: stakeholder, budget, cost, time, scope, procurement, in addition to some other additional tasks, where, for example, number 1 here, you find execute projects with the urgency required to deliver business value. So you are not just now executing projects in order to deliver on time, on cost, on schedule, on quality. No, your eyes are on what? On value. And that's one of the major changes, as I told you, in the exam and in the coming PMBOK also. Value became the focus, delivering value became the focus of all what you are doing. And in your projects, in your company, in your organization, in your life, you should consider restructuring your full approaches to match this. Value should be at the center and everything else comes around it. And finally, the last one, which is business environment. You cannot manage a project or a program in isolation from your organization. Your organization has some needs, some regulation, some governance requirement, some directions that you have to follow. So you have to comply and consider all of this when managing your projects. And this has only 8% of the exam questions. Let's take one of the examples just to highlight what does this mean. So for the process domains, you have the first task, execute project with the urgency required to deliver business value. So what should you do? First of all, assess opportunities to deliver value incrementally. This is very easy in agile because it's your a common practice. But even in a traditional project, if you are now managing a traditional project, you should always look for the value. It's not accepted that you as a project manager do not know what is the value expected from the project, what value this project is going to deliver, because this should be your focus. Examine business value throughout the project, not only at the beginning to make sure that you have a clear business case and you have a clear feasibility study for the project, but this has to be examined all over the project. And then support any incremental delivery, which is again common in agile, but in traditional sometimes we call it quick wins. What value can I deliver in a traditional project? This is now a clear task for you. You should always look for value, you should always monitor value, and you should always try to deliver value as early as possible. In the business environment domain, in domain number 3, you will find so what should you do? It's your role to make sure that business is identified, that there is clear ownership of benefits. Sometimes it's not the project team, it's another business unit in the organization who is responsible for benefit realization. Verify that there is a system in place to track benefits. Appraise stakeholder of value against evidence. So you should be, as I told you, you should have always an eye on benefits. And those are the tasks expected from the project manager to do in this regard as per the new exam content outline, which was not really highlighted in this depth previously. If we take another example of the technical ones, for example, plan and manage schedule. So your schedule will differ by your choosing delivery approach. If it's agile, if it's hybrid, if it's traditional. So you'll find that to prepare the schedule, to measure the progress, to modify or to update the schedule is always based on methodology, based on methodology, based on methodology. And when you talk about estimation, it includes milestone dependencies and story point, which is a clear agile term. So agility is introduced everywhere in the exam, and expect to get exam questions related to agility, even if you are not working in reality in agile projects. The last point I want to tell you for the exam, it's not only about knowledge or learning. The exam, I cannot say all, but many people cannot pass the exam before they do enough practicing and try to answer complete tests before they go. And the internet is full of sites providing paid and free exam tests. So my first advice is practice. My second advice is practice. And my third advice is practice if you are going to go through the PMP exam. So this covers our first part, and then we'll start the second part. What will change in the coming edition of the PMBOK guide? Before we started, I just also raised a small poll to get your feedback about some items before we start. Please answer the poll. Is it shown to you? I cannot see any answers yet. Oh yes, start to appear now. So almost half of the attendees are very familiar with the PMBOK 6th edition, and none till now has followed in details what PMI published about the coming edition. But maybe most of you have already read some highlights about it, but without going into much details. And the last question about how do you believe PMBOK should be structured? So we have two major choices, by knowledge areas and by process groups, which was always the debate in the previous years, before we have the new PMBOK. Only one person said not by. Okay, let's end the poll and show you the answers. Share results. So for the first questions, we have 50% of the attendees familiar or very familiar with the current edition of the PMBOK guide, and 25% not familiar, and 25% somewhat familiar. Then about what PMI published about the new PMBOK, so none have gone into studied those in details, which gave me a good opportunity to speak in details about it. And most of the attendees, 75%, have gone through the changes, but without going into detail. And the last question, how do you believe the PMBOK guide should be structured? By knowledge areas, then processes, 50%, which is the current PMBOK, the 6th edition. And by process groups, then processes, which some people and some book followed before, which is also very valid, and not by any of those. And the answer, the last answer, which we have one person only answer, is what is really implemented in the coming edition of PMBOK. So the coming edition is not structured by knowledge areas or by process groups, and we'll see how it is structured in a minute. So coming back to our presentation, my second part is the PMBOK Guide 7th edition. So this edition is going to be made available at 1st of August. So around 3 or 4 months from then, and it's really a major change. So how do I know a little bit more about it? For two reasons. First of all, when PMI issued the first draft, maybe more than 1 year back, I contributed like any member could contribute and provided comments and suggestions and feedback on the edition. So they sent me an email that I will be listed as a contributor to the coming edition. So at the end of the PMBOK, you will find an appendix about contributors in the review of the PMBOK, and my name will be one of them. Then I am one of the Arabic validation team, the PMBOK. So this is how I know some more insights about it. But PMI already published a lot of very high level information about the changes. So first of all, one of the major changes is that it's the previous edition was prescriptive, and now it includes principles to guide the mindset, actions, and behaviors. So you will not find any. The current PMBOK is about 44 processes and I don't remember 12 or 13 knowledge areas. Now all of this is gone. There is the coming edition of the PMBOK. There is no knowledge areas. There is no process group, and there is no processes. So when you're preparing for the exam, some people spend a lot of time studying what are the inputs, what are the outputs, what are the tools and techniques. Tools and techniques are still available. Documents are still available as artifacts, but there is no processes anymore. There is no the structure, the current structure of the PMBOK, which was actually almost stable for years, is now totally changing. So there will be no more processes, no more knowledge areas, no more process group in the coming PMBOK. What will happen instead of that, I will show you in a while. So there is no specific processes. There is domains of interaction. There is focus on outcomes. We are not only now addressing delivery and how to deliver, but the focus is on what outcome. one of the famous statements in the PMBOK that we always said when we are providing a PMP course or giving an introduction about the PMBOK, that it was applicable for most of the projects, most of the time. Not all projects, all time. But the coming edition is applicable to any project. So the previous edition was mainly addressing project managers. As a project manager, you should do X, Y, Z. Now it is for anyone. It's like a guidance for anyone who is involved in the project. All previous revisions were incremental. We add a knowledge area, we remove a knowledge area, we have a process, we remove a process. But now it's a complete change, a complete transformation into principle-based guide to reflect the delivery landscape. Tailoring also is very highlights some specific approach or guidance on how to deliver tailoring. In the sixth edition, there was at the beginning of each knowledge area, there was a small half a page about almost to describe what can be tailored for this knowledge area. Now there's a complete guidance about tailoring included in the coming edition of the PMBOK. So in summary, there is three main changes: full range of development approaches, focus on outcomes, and tailoring, in addition to the change of the structure of the PMBOK. So the coming edition of the PMBOK will have like two main books in it. You can consider it's two separate books: the standard of project management and a guide to the project management body of knowledge. So like there are two books in one bundle. The standard is the foundation to manage projects, and it applies to all projects. It includes some principal guides that will be applicable for all projects, while the guide will you can be used to enhance and build on this foundation and to make tailoring to your projects. How? The standard includes two main things: the value delivery system and 12 project management principles that are applicable to all projects, and not only for the project manager, but for anybody who is working in a project. While the guide have 8 performance domains and MMA, models, methods, and artifacts. And at the end, there is a guide or how to tailor to form this using those two documents, how to tailor your approach, how to tailor based on the guide, tailor requirements for your project. So a system of value delivery. Your aim, as I told you at the beginning, should be always focused on value, how to deliver value, how to increase the value delivered, either it's value contribution to environment, social contribution, enabling transformation, sustaining benefits, or delivering a project or a product that meets customer or end user requirements. We are not anymore focusing on delivery on time, cost, and schedule. Still, all of those is valid and needed. But above all of this, your focus and your eyes and your concentration should always be on delivering value. There are 12 project management principles that are not only for the project manager, but should be followed by all project teams. One of them is focus on value. So everyone in the project should be focusing on value. Some of them has some agile flavor, like collaborative team, engage with stakeholders, embrace adaptability and resilience, enable change. So change now is not anymore a bad thing. If it adds value, then it's welcome. And not only in agile, but even in a traditional project. If you are working in a project using the predictive or waterfall approach, and you find an opportunity to add value, then the change in that case will be welcome. And tailoring based on content. Those are the 12 principles. And under each of them, you'll find some guidance on what should be done and what should be followed. In the guide, you will find 8 performance domains: stakeholders, team, development approach, life cycle, planning, project work, delivery, measurement, and uncertainty. So those are the main components of the new coming edition of the PMBOK. The documents I'm going to share with you, you'll find some more brief about each of them at high level. Then let's take one example: team performance domain. What is the main ultimate goal? You need to have a high performing team with shared ownership, demonstrating their skills again to deliver value. But to address this, what will be addressed? You need to have leadership styles. You need to consider conflict management, team development, team building, collaboration. At the end, what is the aim? Is to have high-performing teams and that deliver value to the organization. The MMAs, methods, models, and artifacts. Models like, for example, the team development model like the Tuckman ladder, or motivation models like Theory X, Theory Y, and Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So most of those you've already seen, but they were used in tools and techniques inside the processes. Now you have a section called models, methods, and artifacts, and it's classified into three categories: models, methods like SWOT analysis or root cause analysis or estimating, and artifacts like the charts, the reports, the baselines, the diagrams. And there is a very nice mapping at the end showing where each one of those can be used in the different performance areas. And there is a guide how to tailor. You have, first of all, first step in tailoring is to choose your development approach. Are you going agile or hybrid or traditional? Then you have to tailor for the organizational requirement, any requirement for the organization. And then not all projects are the same. There is larger projects, there is small projects, there is complex projects, there is less complex projects. So you have to tailor the third step based on your project attributes. And finally, ongoing improvement. And there is a document also explaining more about each one of those steps. I will share it with you at the end. Fine. So before we move to the last part, our last poll, just to know, are you familiar with those things or not? The polls. And then poll number 3, lunch poll. The first question, are you aware about PMI Standard Plus? The second question, are you aware about PMI free courses? So we have 3 persons who have already tried the PMI Standard Plus, the others did not. And 5 persons who did enroll in the free courses and the others did not. Fine. So I will end the polling and share the results. So we have only 3 persons who are tried the PMI Standard Plus. So I will take you very quickly through it. And the 3 courses, we have 5 persons who are enrolled, and the others, maybe 5 others do not know of it. So I will highlight it very quickly before I close, inshallah. So stop sharing the results and then close the poll. So our last step is about PMI Standard Plus. I will just bring it live. Please let me know if it's appearing on the screen now, or I need to reshare again. Can you see it now on my screen, the PMI Standard Plus?
Yes.
Okay, great. So this is a repository of information, including the sections of the PMBOK that are included in the PMBOK guide, videos, articles, templates. It's like a repository of information related to project management, and it's continuously updated. So they keep added to it step by step. So for example, even when I'm studying for the exam or when I'm practicing, I need to know more, for example, about the charter. I will just write charter here. I will get a video explaining what is the project charter, 5 minutes video. I will get a tablet for project charter. I will get the art where in the PMBOK Guide 6th edition charter was referred to in many occasions. You will find all of them here, and if you continue, you'll find more and more. So it's a very accessible, very reachable source of information that you can use very easily. If you go also for another thing, like something from the Agile, like retrospective, for example. Did I, retrospective, fine. For example, here, what is the difference? A video showing what is the difference between retrospectives, retrospectives versus lessons learned. You'll find some when to use iterative life cycle. If you go, for example, anything you want to search in the project management field, you will find it, and you can also add some filters here. You can choose in a specific domain or a specific format. I am looking only for the standard guide. I'm looking only for audio. I'm looking only for the template, and so on. So it's a very useful tool that my understanding that it will be available for PMI members only. But I heard some time back that they are leaving it for a trial period for anyone who can access. Just you need to register and add, but I'm not sure of this information. But for sure, if you are a member, you can have full access to the PMI standard. The second part is the PMI free course. If you go to your PMI page and log in, then you go to online courses in the store. When you go to online courses like this, you'll find a lot of courses. Maybe 6 or 7 or 8 courses are free. So you find here this course is paid $280, 700, but you find this is zero. So this course and much more, maybe 6 or 7 courses are free that you can just add to cart and take the course and take a certification and of attendance, of course, and learn for free. So if you are a member, also I heard that for some period it might be accessible for non-members, but I'm not sure about this. So if you are a member, at least you can go in and use those sites. My last part I want to discuss with you before we close. I will send you all those. I'm not sure if the links can be linked in the chat or by email. I will arrange with the team here to send you all the links at the end. And my last just I need to know your feedback about the session before we open the questions and answers. Just a very quick survey about how did you find the session for me to learn on and improve for my coming session. It's just a very quick one question survey about how useful did you find the session, and I will not share the results or present it, but just for me to know how successful was the delivery. So till you answer it, we can start opening. Where is the polling? No, I have to close it first. So let's take 30 more seconds or 15 more seconds and close it. So I will end the polling now and I will close it and come back to you for the last part, which is questions and answers. And this is my website. If you are interested to join us for knowledge sharing, you are very much welcome. So I'm not sure how the questions will be managed. I get the answer. I cannot see the chat from my side.
We have some raised hands.
Yeah.
Mr. Sam Al-Malih.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Mohammed. Thank you very much for the presentation. I just wanted to get a sense of how the shift of PMBOK from the 6th edition to the 7th edition is going. Is it something that affects, let's say, traditional project management in the construction or the oil and gas sector, which is very much waterfall, to shift to agile methodologies? Or is there some expectation that these project managers have to shift their way as well? And what provisions are given for this kind of transition?
I don't see necessarily a transition in the practice of some projects. So, for example, one of the things that it always mentions that you have to choose your product approach, so your life cycle approach for development of your product. So, in some areas like oil and gas and constructions, it's very difficult to change the approach itself, and the PMBOK is not asking for this. But still, there is a space for agility. So if I'm not exactly following the project management approach as a pull-out system or the team managed system, there is a very good space for agility. For example, I can change the sequence of work of some tasks to deliver more values early. Still, the steps to do the tasks I cannot change. Either in oil and gas or in constructions, you have some solid industry practices and specifications that you have to follow. You cannot change the sequence of work for many activities, but you can change your plans to deliver value more at the beginning. Well, the PMBOK will ask you to be aware of all of the knowledge of the agile principles as a project manager, because you can adapt some of them within your project, but for sure not in all types of projects, you can fully adapt an agile approach, a full agile approach. It cannot be done in many aspects, in many areas. For example, if I take a bridge, I have to build it in a specific sequence. But if I have a project for roads, I can redesign my plan to deliver value for a specific part for the end users to finish it earlier. So this is agility introduced in a traditional approach. But I don't think it's applicable to fully use agile approach as a delivery approach in areas like oil and gas and construction, but you can still introduce some agile aspects and some agile practices within your project. Did I answer?
Yes, thank you.
Mr. Tariq?
Yes.
Mr. Tariq.
Engineer Arafa, how are you?
Yeah, hello. Yeah, الصوت بيقطع بس يا طارق، مش سامع. لو في سماع الصوت بيقطع شوي.
hold on. الصوت واضح هلا؟
انا بالنسبه لي مقطع، ما عرفتش الجمله على بعضها يعني.
Let me just change the connection 1 minute.
اوكي. طيب ناخد حاجه ثانيه لحد ما طارق يظبط.
Will the new PMBOK, the PMBOK 7, will it replace the Agile or the ACP, or will it complement the Agile, the ACP, and the disciplined Agile?
The ACP and disciplined agile are a little bit not the same thing. Yani the PMBOK, of course, will complement everything, but the PMBOK does not go into the details on how to do agile practices and agile guides. So, for example, it will tell you that you have to have, it will refer to story points, but it will not tell you how to estimate the story point or how to, might refer to a stand-up meeting. But what would be done in the stand-up meetings, it will not be in the PMBOK. It will be in other documents and covered in other documents and certification. The ACP, as far as I understand it covers the common agile practices and things. The discipline agile is very specific to PMI supported approach, which is disciplined agile, built on the book called Choose Your Wow. And it is provides more flexibility in choosing many approaches. For example, the disciplined agile, you have a choice to apply 1 out of 6 life cycles within your project. So it's allowing you for more choice. So the disciplined agile is a specific approach. ACP covers agile in general, agility in general. So for example, if you are you studied before Scrum Master with any other organization, you will be familiar with very much of what is needed to know for the ACP certification, because it addresses your knowledge about agile in general. The disciplined agile is very specific to disciplined agile, not only like ACP. The PMBOK will not go into the same level of details for agility, but it refers in many areas to agile practices, to agile artifacts, but it will not tell you how to do it or what is the good practice in building those things.
Thank you. Mr. Tariq?
Yeah, thank you very much. Mr. Ahmed, Muhammad, thank you very much for your useful session. And as always, you are brilliant. Now, related to the PMP, now we are in the industry, and the new PMBOK is great, and this is what we have been really expecting from PMI in terms of benefits and value management. But when I think about technicalities as teaching, the PMBOK in technical way, and when you're going to some industries like construction, like oil and gas, like whatever you name it as waterfall, pure waterfall, and you start to teach them some of the agile practices like Scrum, like artifacts, daily stand-up. Believe me, some of them, they start to say, this is not applicable in our industry. So question number 1, you can teach this, but in the exam they are going to have really application for the, like I taught one lady before maybe 6 months, for example. In the course, she was telling me this is not applicable in our industry, especially when you tell them about the Scrum, the Agile, the artifacts, and so on. So how can we avoid this? Because later on, the PMP will be for IT and special projects, unfortunately. While the PMP should be for all industries, and this is mentioned in the PMBOK. But when you ask them about specific Agile standards and you tailor everything towards Agile, then by time, this is the question, by time the demand for the PMP will be less from certain industries. What do you think about this?
First of all, a very big part from this will be resolved in next August when the coming edition of the PMBOK will be available. Of course, the exam will not immediately change to match the new edition, but in the coming edition of the PMBOK, we do not have this issue because we don't have the same structure of processes. It's mainly guidelines and principles and performance domain. So somehow it will be, to a certain extent, resolved. In reality, most of our projects in our organization were managed as traditional approach, except for some IT and software development process. When you are addressing our agile transformation, we started even the same project manager being involved in some agile squads to perform some improvements. So the project manager, as a project manager, is not only 100% dedicated to his project, to a certain project, construction project, for example, that he's managing, but he's also involved in other internal projects which are managed in an agile way. So knowledge-wise, a project manager should know both, should know how to manage a traditional project and should know how to be in line and understand the agile approaches, which he doesn't have to apply fully in a construction project, but he will need to apply in some other tasks or some other development areas or transformation requirements that are there in the organization. So it's working fine for many people. I have seen it now that as long as you are using the right level of details and the right involvement. But if I come to teaching, teaching is a little different because you have attendees from different, teaching will be perfect if you have one uniform set of attendees that are from the same industry or from the same level of knowledge. So you can customize what examples you are giving or what practices is recommended and what is not recommended to all of them. But usually this does not happen. You have a mix of level of knowledge and a mix of industries. So in that case, we have to spend much more effort in bringing it live with some examples. Yani, if I'm teaching a course inside RTA, it's much easier for me because the same environment I can give example from what was managed as Agile and what was managed as traditional. But if you are going for public courses, I agree with you, it will be much more difficult now, but it will be resolved to a certain extent after the issue of the coming PMBOK, because it highlights principles and concepts rather than processes and steps to follow.
Thank you, Dr. Muhammad. Tariq, do you have any other questions? Go ahead.
Well, thank you very much. Highly appreciate it.
Excellent, excellent. So just checking with the audience as well. Any further questions? Either just unmute, introduce yourself, and throw your questions out. Dr. Muhammad. Let me just check. I thought I saw somebody's raising hand. Okay. Okay. So, okay, I think, Doctor, since there is no further comments, any final thoughts, Doctor, just as we close the session?
Just the final advice to me first and to everyone else, just those are the changes. You need to be ready for them. Think about anything you are doing, even in your organization, in your work, in the chapter volunteering activities, in your life, how to make sure that value has the spot, how you measure value, how you are going to plan and measure the value of anything you want to achieve. And I think it's applicable for all. And then those people who are not really involved yet in Agile is becoming more spread, and it will be more useful, not necessarily as a full development approach for some types of projects, but any project manager should have good knowledge about the Agile practices. That's why I recommend anybody who was not involved yet in Agile to get to learn more about Agile practices and Agile tools and techniques and Agile mindset. And finally, I just want to share. I will share the links that I am not. I don't have the chat link, so I will share the links for download for the reference documents with Mr. Ahmed Fikri, and he will share with them with the attendees somehow.
Much appreciated, Dr. Mohammed. It's always great, and we would love to invite you for our coming session if possible. We are scheduled in May after Ramadan, inshallah. If you are interested to give us another educational session, I would love to invite you either in May, end of May, or inshallah, end of June. See how you feel about one of the most interesting topics specifically that you would like to. And you have a lot of interesting topics, I guess,
Yes,
that you'd like.
I love also hearing, so I can be invited sometimes to hear.
Absolutely.
Also, I like also to hear you.
Absolutely, Doctor. Not a
Okay.
problem. You will be more than happy, and we will forward you the next meeting invite, at least for the May-June series, inshallah, coming into the full summer.
If
Yeah.
I
We
have
try and
something
keep
ready, I will keep you updated, inshallah.
as you like. Yes, no problem.
Okay.
No problem.
Thank
Tariq, do you have? I saw you open your camera. Maybe you have another question. You good? Excellent. Excellent. Thank you,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Muhammad. I think
Thank
we
you.
need to give you a round of virtual applause. Much appreciated. This
Thank
is
you.
wonderful. And thank you for allowing us to record the session and share your knowledge with the rest of the team. Also, I want to thank Ahmed Fikri, who has worked hard to bring us this wonderful session as well with you, Dr. Muhammad. And also, I want to thank Iris for creating a wonderful session as well, complementing this amazing forum today. What I want to do is I want to invite anybody who would like to join us also to speak in the coming sessions. I know that our next session will be after Ramadan. Let me just quickly double check. Is it, have we scheduled it? We've scheduled it on the 29th of May. And I've already sent the meeting invite. Let me just add Dr. Muhammad Arafat as well so he can join us. Dr. Muhammad Arafat, sorry.
Thank you.
I just saw them. I've just added you to our session on the 29th.